The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the QATV staff or board of directors. QATV, in compliance with FCC regulations, is prohibited from exercising control over the content of independent, member-produced public access programming.
Welcome to the show. As you know, I'm Isha.
And I'm Sophie.
We have Norma Fitzgerald.
Hi.
And as usual, we always bring unique shows to the community. And this year, which is season 3, we wanted to bring in something very important, very informative, something that I would like to learn, my co-host would love to learn. And it all happened when I was at Quincy Stop and Shop. And a lady named Mary came up to me to say that she recognized our show, she acknowledged us, and she's the one who said, why don't you do a show on the LGBTQ community? Because we are also there in Quincy, and we would love you to speak on issues and introduce us to the community. So it was, I thought of it, and then coincidentally, I was introduced to you, Norma, and I have to say Norma is a LICSW, and just like you, I will ask her, what does that mean? Because I personally didn't know what that meant. So this is Norma Fitzgerald. Please introduce us.
Certainly.
And educate us and our audience on this, please.
Okay. Well, for those who are not aware, LICSW is a licensed independent clinical social worker, and basically that means people who have been awarded this have a graduate degree in social work and have the required experience, supervision, and have passed an exam and are able to actually practice psychotherapy or counseling or whatever you want to call it, social work, and independently, and or they may be working with other health clinicians under psychiatrists or with them, and so forth. So that is what
LICSW
stands for. Yes.
So do people call you up, or are they referred to you? How does it work out?
At this time, I'm not practicing independently.
Right.
I did in New York. If you can't tell that I'm from New York by listening to me, I worked both for nonprofit agencies as well as had an independent practice for several years before we moved up north. And then I went to work for the town of Sharon and ran their elder affair program.
Today, Norma is a Quincy resident and looking forward to work to educate people like us, you, and to benefit the LGBTQ community, as well as bring us more series on this. So just like Mary, we all are comfortable and educated. So Norma, what is LGBTQ? What do they stand for?
Well, it's an acronym, and I think most people are aware that the L refers to lesbian. This refers really to one's sexual orientation and identity. So L would be lesbian identification. That would be women who are attracted to other women sexually, and G is for gay.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes actually that word is used in reference to women also, but it generally refers to men who are attracted to other men. And again, this is the way that they are born. I mean, it is not usually something that people choose. Well, somebody can choose. You are born, this is your sexual preference. B is for bisexual, and in this situation, people find themselves attracted to both sexes. T is for transgender, and in this situation, people have find themselves really crossing over to feel as if they are another gender. And most of us, I think, have heard about Bruce Jenner, who transed into Caitlyn Jenner, and in fact has a show on TV, a regular series now, and whatever anybody thinks about it, it's certainly eye-opening and helping the public get some sense, at least of what a star's life is like in making this kind of change. So.
I also, while I was doing a research, I came to know that transgender is also pre-surgery or post-surgery. So you may choose to be a female or a male or whatever you choose to. That comes under the transgender, am I
yes.
right?
And you know, many people don't choose to go through the surgery. Aside from being very expensive, it's not reversible. And they actually had one of the shows, one of Caitlyn Jenner's shows, and I've caught about 2 of them, talked about this, making this kind of a decision, because it's very, very, very
It's a huge
difficult
decision.
I'm glad about the Caitlyn Jenner show in a way, because just like educating our communities with this issue, Caitlyn Jenner is doing in a worldwide issue, and that way we all need to respect, learn the feelings, identity. Am I right? Don't you think that's
yes.
positive?
Yes. I mean, and people have different opinions about the way Caitlyn Jenner's gone about introducing this to the public, but Caitlyn Jenner is, and Bruce Jenner was somebody who was a very famous person and had and has services and things available to her that are not there for everybody else. So, but it's still something that allows us to get a glimpse of what life might be like for somebody going through something like Bruce did, becoming Caitlyn. Not easy.
And a queer, we have queer. What?
Yeah, we left out the Q. LGBTQ has been something that people have added on to this acronym lately. So most people think the Q refers to queer, and for some people it does, and for some people it refers to questioning, for people who are actually questioning their gender. When I was working for the town of Sharon, we had actually the very first LGBTQ program, social program for seniors. And that's basically people 60 and over, but people under 60 were also invited to attend. And their allies, by the way, we should talk about allies, and advocates were invited also, who support this population. And the elders really, in a discussion, indicated that they don't like using the word Q to mean queer, because as many of us know, that was a very derogatory word when they were growing up. And things have changed for younger people today so much. So what we were hoping there, and I've retired since, but is to have a discussion between the 2 age groups and let them kind of learn from one another.
Yeah, that's true, because when I was growing up, everything was like in the closet. Like nobody even talked about homosexuality or lesbian or anything like that. So, and you kind of kept it away. But now, as the time has passed, it has come, it's more acceptable. But this, it's come more into the mainstream. And, we are becoming more acceptable, and we know that, there are people like that. And I guess that's a part of life.
It's I guess it's been a part
Part
of
of
life
life.
forever, actually.
Right.
It's
That's right.
nothing new. It's just, I think...
It's awareness.
It's awareness, social
Right.
media, newspapers, internet now. Everybody knows everything about everything.
Right.
Which is good, I think. It's
Yes.
towards a positive
Definitely,
side.
it is, because when people didn't know anything about it, like I think till Bruce Jenner came out too, a lot of people didn't know that this existed or didn't want to talk about it.
Well, I think, too, where you've been brought up and what your surroundings are.
Right.
But, I mean, this existed back in Rome. I mean, and
Yeah.
there were places
Yes.
where it was quite acceptable, but there are countries today where they'll kill you if they know.
All right.
True.
You know, so it's not acceptable everywhere. So, you know, on some level, we're fortunate here. These people are fortunate here, but it's not, their battles are not entirely won. So there's still a lot of discrimination, in regard to work and services and even health care, and depends where you live, what state you live in, what hospital you walk into. So.
On this occasion, I do want to thank from Soph and me to Dove, who has been an instrumental in domestic violence. And this is the reason I came up with Dove, is Dove educated and trained us. And Dove, when we spoke about domestic violence, then it said that it was an issue, whereas same way LGBTQ is not an issue. It's just awareness of domestic violence, like you saw, and this is awareness of LGBTQ. We also have to thank, really, she's a phenomenal woman. This is Elizabeth Campbell, who is the executive director of QA-TV. She's always looking to help the community in every possible way she can. So with Dove, under Dove, protection of knowing domestic violence women and LGBTQ, we are going to open all of the books. Like, I'm sure we'll go through different chapters as the show goes on. Back to you, I was thinking about the cis, what do you mean by the cisgender?
So cisgender is I think it's a relatively new term, but I couldn't say for sure because I'm really not a super specialist in this field, but more with elders in general. But cisgender refers to all people who are not lesbian or not LGBTQ. So it's, if you're not, then you or I or whoever, if you're not, then you're cisgender. And the fact that this term has developed and is useful, even though it's not really out there yet too frequently, it helps when you're talking to people, just as we were talking earlier before the show about referring to somebody as a widower or a he or a she or a they, or you know, when you're filling out forms, it says you're a male or female. The census, actually, U.S. Census didn't really have an option. So people are left out, and this gives people a way to say, you know, kind of who they are, where they're coming from, and it gives you other options.
So you would say that a cis man is a man who is born in a man's body, and a cis woman is a woman, like all of us, born in a woman's body.
And who prefers, so a
To
cis
resist.
man who was born in a man's body, his sexual identity is as a man, and his sexual preference is for a woman.
Okay. So yes, it's so important to have an identity in the forms. That's true, what you just brought up, that how would you fill in the forms as a man, woman? So how do you address how someone walks into the door? This is something we were questioning when we were at a conference, is how do you question or how do you identify someone? I can call you Mrs. Norma Fitzgerald. I can call you Miss if need be, but how do you identify?
Well, I wasn't given any pat answers for this, but what I would do, and I'll refer back to another position I had working with people who are visually impaired many years ago, ask them, what is your name? My name is Jean Smith. Well, actually, Jean Smith could, if you're on the phone,
Could be anyone.
it could be anybody.
Right.
And in fact, we've had that situation in where I worked, where one of the town officials was speaking to somebody who was trans and thought the person was the opposite sex, well, was the sex that they didn't identify as,
Right.
just because of the sound of the voice. So I think making assumptions is something that we all need to be more aware of. Sometimes we can't help it, and I think, if you do this innocently, you'll be accepted. But to say to somebody who walks in, how would you like to be addressed, is probably, to me,
Very
the way
respectable, I think.
Right.
I think
to
that's...
go. Or how would you like to fill out this form? And you might have, if you have forms to fill out, maybe you have an option there for whatever.
That's
Or
right.
and a blank, Mr., Miss, Ms., Mrs., blank, fill in
What
your
should-
preference.
That's a good
That's a good
option.
idea, actually, just to have the three options where you can do the other and then fill it in yourself, what you consider yourself to be.
Right, and
Okay.
how you identify. I mean, they say
I
the
see.
same problem with just filling out. If in many cases you're not supposed to ask people religion or race or whatever. Where I was working when we were applying for grants, oftentimes the person who was awarding the grant wanted to know who are you serving. So we would say on a form, optional to fill this in, and I might even explain this information is being collected in order for us to apply for a grant, but it's still optional.
I see.
Excellent.
Yeah. Because I think it's very difficult nowadays, or getting easier maybe, that we can address this and change stuff. Like for licenses, do they have that option right now? I don't know if they do or not.
Motor Vehicle Bureau?
Yeah,
I don't think they do.
they do. Because it's
Yeah.
not really yet kind of mainstream.
Right.
The LGBTQ is
Right.
not mainstream yet.
Yeah, and one of the things that unfortunately could not be arranged for this evening, but hopefully another show, is we bring other people in here and people who have more answers,
Right.
people who are specialists in the field, and we do know some, and people who are living this and can
We would
also
love to. I mean, that was the whole reason is when Mary came up to me, and then Soph and me were at a conference, we said that, well, we don't know nothing. We really knew nothing. So we went to research, we came across you, and then the specialists to be continued, people in our shows. It's a way of educating ourselves,
Right.
the community. And it's serving the community because it's awareness. If the community didn't know how to address, how will they respect
Right.
this population?
Right. I want to mention one thing that probably leave people thinking more about how important this is, and that is there's a film called Gen Silent, produced and directed by a fellow named Stu Maddox. And sometimes it's actually offered online free, but otherwise organizations can rent it. So he's trying to pay for the film, I guess. But I saw the film, and my staff saw the film some years ago, and it follows 6 people, I think, from this area who are elders, LGBT people, pretty much living their lives very isolated. In fact, there was one couple in it who were living in Sharon for 20 years and didn't tell anybody. So they really didn't befriend people. They worked in the Boston area, and I think they had some friends there, but they didn't feel comfortable disclosing this for 20 years in their own community because it was never talked about at all.
It's kind of taboo.
The fact, that we started this lunch and social program, the very first one in ours was not a senior center, it was an adults welcome, but like a senior center, brought in people from all around, many other communities. And one woman said to me, a senior citizen, I mean, she had lived her whole life there, she goes, nobody talks about this in the town I live in. Nobody. You have no idea what it means to come here. No idea. There was another person, a gentleman. We were filling out forms for something one day, and I was asking people for email addresses so we could let them know about events. And he said, "Don't email me." And I said, "Don't know. How are you going to get the information? Because we don't always send out by snail mail, you know." And he said, "I'll get it from my friends." And I said, "Do you have email?" He goes, "Yes." He said, "But when I die, I don't want my family to see where I was getting email from." And it was like,
Oh my God, yeah.
so he's lived his whole life
In
with
secret.
his secrets.
Right.
It's just,
It's
terrible.
so suffocating.
Yes.
and terrible.
I mean, that's why too we brought this program so that we really don't want to offend anyone. That's we want to be as respectable to their being, like what they want to do, and that's why we want to talk about it and bring this out. I guess so that people are aware of it and made aware and don't feel so. Like so alone in this, like that's awful to think that this person doesn't want anybody else to know.
yeah.
You're not in a prison. That's
No.
So your point is so right. You and for you to do such a big service to the community and help these people, it's a blessings in disguise. I would
It really
say.
Well, it's a
is.
blessing for all of us because we all learn, we all are enriched by it.
It's respectable to what other people think and how they want to be treated, and that goes across. Like it doesn't matter who it is. Because I was listening to where even anybody who's, because I think the religion also counts in a way, and that's why it's kind of, we don't want to deal with this. This is not how it's supposed to be. So I think that because that's why people have been brought up that way. So it's difficult for them to get over it. And I guess we have to show that this happens. This is what and we can't just push it under the rug anymore.
No, definitely not. No. Quincy is very diverse, and this Boston area is very diverse.
Yes.
And it welcomes people in, and we do really well as a result of all the
Right.
diversity.
Which is great.
And all the
Like-
immigration.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
We
And
wouldn't have been here.
Not
Yes.
only for that, it is Quincy. I did not know. So this is also education had such a diverse population, immigrants, mainstream, as well as the LGBT community. We have
Right.
noticed that Quincy has a huge club, a newspaper, all of this serving the LGBTQ community. So it's awareness, and if we have done 50 plus shows, and then what happened is this season we said we're going to just bring up unique shows, unique issues, and we are trying to resolve problems for all communities.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you could educate us and will keep educating us going
I'm
forward.
happy to.
So this
Reinventing myself, in retirement. Here I am, 2 months later. I said, everything's the same except I'm not getting paid anymore. Except I am in another way.
Right.
But you're serving the nation. You're
That's the
serving
way
the
I'm getting paid.
community. That's the
Exactly.
way.
That's the
That's
way.
priceless.
It is.
But what I also understood is there's two generations you mentioned. You mentioned this one for the elderly and one for the young generation in this community. So you're now trying to help both of these generations with your knowledge.
Well, that's what we were hoping to do in Sharon. In our adult center was bring together, we had been working with the schools and working with our senior group. And I don't see why we can't try to do that in this community too.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it's so, as you said, this community is so open and so diverse. So I think we have such a mixture. It's more accepting. I think we are more accepting here maybe than other places, even in the States. I'm talking about other places, but I think in Northeast,
Yes.
we tend to be a lot more accepting,
Yeah.
which is really great.
And it's I think it's honorable to have Quincy as the first community television to be talking and helping the community introducing this community, educating this community, which is priceless also.
Yeah.
I imagine. So the best way, I would say, to identify or know someone is, please be human. When we talk to each other, be human, be respectable unconditionally. Refer to individuals with their chosen name, just like Norma mentioned, that ask, how would you like to be addressed? Miss, Mrs., whatever they refer to. And again, Norma had mentioned, watch your past tenses, right? Like you said, we had this conversation earlier, that watch your past tenses.
So don't use, oh, you were that before, but now you are that.
Yeah.
So you
Well,
kind of, it's
I mean,
offensive.
if a person wants to talk about, take your cues from the other person,
Right.
really. If you're nervous about it, if you don't know this person and you're getting to know them, or whatever your relationship is, I think.
But how would you come up there to a person? Say, how would you just come up and right up to them and say, or would you just let it pass? Like, what do you do, Norma?
Well, I mean, no, I don't just go up to people. If there's a reason to be speaking to somebody.
No, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. I mean,
no, I mean, not really. Not in Tom, Dick, and Harry, but what I meant is like, if you're talking to somebody and
well, usually, I mean, I'm not usually in such a formal situation, but I think if in a work situation, I might be saying something like, you know, please tell me your name, or my name is, what is your name, and, you know, how do you like to be addressed? It reminds me of when we were children and we were just at that cusp where people always used to have to call their friends' parents by their last name, and I know, I think in India you
You
say
have the same
auntie
too,
and
yes.
uncle,
Uncles,
but
right.
here it was Mrs. Smith and, you know, Mrs. Jones. But when I was growing up, people started to call their friends' parents by their first name. So, but not everybody liked that at all.
No, no.
You know, and people would tell you. So people can tell you, but I
Right.
think that you can just say, you know, do you like to be addressed by your last name, your first name? How do you like to be addressed?
yeah,
What-
because we don't want to offend anyone, and that's why that's my question.
Well, I think
was,
that
you
would
know,
be true of
true.
anybody at all.
Right.
I don't think this is
Really
really
yes,
different.
and don't assume. I came to know is don't assume to know the person's experience, but always be supportive. But Norma, what would be your closing statement for the LGBTQ community?
Well, I think this is for all communities. I said I would share with you what we worked on within an organization called the LGBT Aging Project, which is part of Fenway Health now. And hopefully their director or assistant director will join us at some point. But we developed a mission statement for our organization, our department, and basically was that the center welcomes adults from the many diverse populations residing in and around, in this case, it was Sharon. We foster mutual understanding and respect among our participants, staff, volunteers, and community partners, allies, to enhance the quality of life for all. And I think that really tells it, because this is not just for that group or that group or that group. This is to enhance everyone's lives. If we make everyone welcome here, it helps all of us.
It does.
Absolutely.
Thank
So
you.
we're looking forward that Norma is also probably in Quincy with the Elder Services, introduce LGBTQ to the community, where there's a place also for the elderly as well as for the young generation. Look forward to have more of Norma and all of the special guests that we are going to see over the months. And I have to say thank you for joining us. I'm Isha.
And I'm Sophie.
And Norma.
Thank
you, Norma. Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much.
Thank you.
It's very informative.
Wonderful
Thank you.
opportunity.
I hope
Very
you
nice.
enjoyed the show.